On the ground. Come here.
Newly released body cam footage captures the moments that U.S. Marshals find Oklahoma pediatrician Dr. Neha Gupta hiding in a laundry room days after her 4-year-old daughter was found dead in a Florida pool. While Gupta claims her daughter's death was an accidental drowning, police say it was staged and that she killed her child. I'll be speaking with the veteran detective to break down all the details, from the explosive body cam footage to autopsy contradictions and red flags in a bitter custody battle. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Elizabeth Millner, in for Jesse Weber. Before I get into the story, I want to make a quick announcement. Law&Crime needs your help. We want to create something new for our viewers, something that you'll love and you'll enjoy. We want to make sure that what we create is based on your opinion and your voice. So we've created a short survey to get your feedback, and we'll be selecting 10 people at random who took the survey to get a free Law&Crime t-shirt. If you want your voice to be heard, please check out the survey and let us know your thoughts. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Chilling new body camera footage is shedding the light on the dramatic moments that U.S. Marshals arrested Dr. Neha Gupta, the Oklahoma pediatrician now accused of killing her 4-year-old daughter in what authorities believe was a staged drowning down in Florida. The footage obtained by Law&Crime shows officers forcing their way into Gupta's Oklahoma home before finding her hiding in a laundry room just days after her daughter Aria was discovered dead in a Miami area pool. The 36-year-old remains behind bars in Miami-Dade County, awaiting arraignment in August on a charge of first-degree murder. In that newly released footage, officers can be heard repeatedly announcing their presence and demanding Gupta come to the door. But when no one responds, they enter the home.
Police with a warrant! Open the door! Do it now! That's still me now. Come to the door! Turn around. Last come up the breach. She just went back in the breach. Oh, Neha Gupta, come to the front door! Do it now! Breach. To the U.S. Marshals, we have a warrant for your arrest! Come to the front door! Do it now!
We saw her. Back. Where did she go?
Watch the east side.
East side of the house.
We got y'all's light over here.
Wraps around us.
Yeah.
You want us to move up, or you guys got it?
Okay, so no sign of Dr. Gupta, so they check the closets, the garage, and the locked doors.
Let me get this closet.
Go ahead, closet. Sarah, hold.
Clear.
Okay. Yes, it does kind of come back around, so just hold what you got there. Partially open the door all the way down through the hole.
Does that go out to the garage right there?
Yep.
Hey, we're gonna clear this garage, so back up a little bit, will you?
I'm hybrid.
Okay. It's unlocked.
We'll go ahead and open that, and we'll record this. Henry.
We gotta remember what's on it, if it's a lock or something.
Still no contact with target. Yeah, you go to the target and says have come and swear.
Hey, we're opening up these garage doors. Opening up the garage doors.
We're clear outside.
All right, so still no sign of her until.
Hands, come out. Contact on the ground, come here.
All right, everybody keep clearing the rest of this and get her out.
She hasn't been checked. Not. You good? Or take her off. You want to help me?
Gupta is then taken into custody without incident. Her arrest followed the release of an autopsy report that suggested that her daughter didn't drown, but may have been smothered, leaving investigators to believe the scene was staged to cover up a homicide. You know what doesn't belong in your summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. With our sponsor, Mint, you can get the same great coverage and speed that you're used to, but for a fraction of the cost. Seriously, all of Mint's plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network, just without all the surprise inflated costs. Plus, right now, Mint Mobile is running a killer summer promo. 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for just $15 a month. While your friends are sweating over data overages and surprise charges, you'll be chilling with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and zero headaches. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, well, how do I switch? That seems so complicated. Well, Mint knows their customers have their whole lives stored on their phones, so they make the switch ridiculously easy. You can keep your same phone, keep your same number, and bring all your contacts with you with no complicated loopholes in the process. Just swap out your old SIM for the Mint SIM and you're good to go. It's reliable, fast, and can save you hundreds once you make the switch from your old provider. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mint.com/sidebar. Again, that's mint.com/sidebar. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time customer offer for 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. After her arrest in Oklahoma, Gupta was extradited to Florida, where she made her first court appearance on July 18th. Prosecutors pushed for her to be held without bond, arguing the evidence points to a deliberate act, but Gupta's defense attorney pushed back, claiming that the child's death was a tragic accident.
It appears that there was a tragic accident that occurred on June 27th. There is nothing within the four corners of this affidavit that indicate that, if anything, that this was premeditated.
Gupta's attorney also argued that the premeditated murder charge was premature.
Our concern, Judge, is that this was a rush to judgment. There was no official cause and manner of death. And here we are where the state files an arrest warrant for first-degree murder and is asking my client to be held without bond.
But the judge pointed to the medical examiner's findings, which seems to contradict Dr. Gupta's account of what happened that night.
Her lungs were dry, indicating she did not drown. So for purposes of this probable cause hearing, there is probable cause. In addition, she waited 10 minutes before she purportedly called 911 for help.
Gupta was ultimately denied bond. But if you're just now catching up on the case, let's walk through everything we've learned so far, based on the arrest warrant. According to authorities, at around 3:41 a.m. on June 27th, police were called to a rental home in El Portal, Florida, after Dr. Neha Gupta reported that her 4-year-old daughter had drowned. When first responders arrived, Gupta led them to the backyard pool, where they made a devastating discovery. The warrant reads, Officers observed AT hereinafter referred to as the deceased victim unresponsive and submerged in the deep end of the swimming pool. MDFR personnel extracted the deceased victim from the pool and began cardiopulmonary resuscitation. MDFR transported the deceased victim to Jackson Memorial Hospital, where despite all life-saving measures, the victim was pronounced deceased at 4:28 a.m. Gupta voluntarily agreed to an interview with investigators. She told investigators that she and her daughter were sleeping in the same bed, but she woke up around 3:20 a.m. and realized her daughter was missing. She claimed that the sliding glass door in the bedroom leading to the pool had somehow been opened. The warrant reads, the subject stated prior to sleeping, she checked all the sliding glass doors at the residence. The subject stated that she then observed the deceased victim submerged underwater within the swimming pool of the residence. The subject stated that she attempted to remove the victim from the pool, however, she was unsuccessful due to the fact that she was unable to swim. The subject stated she attempted for approximately 10 minutes to assist the deceased victim before contacting emergency services. But investigators say the autopsy told a very different story and a more troubling story. On June 29th, the medical examiner with Miami-Dade County performed an autopsy on Aria. The results sharply contradicted Dr. Gupta's version of events. The warrant reads, Dr. Tran advised that the deceased victim's lungs and stomach did not contain water and was considered dry. Dr. Tran also advised that based on these findings, she was unable to rule out drowning as being a cause of death. Furthermore, Dr. Tran discovered cuts within the mouth and bruising within the cheeks of the deceased victim's face. Dr. Tran confirmed this type of trauma is not consistent with any life-saving efforts, which were performed on the deceased victim by medical personnel. And the most chilling detail, in Dr. Tran's opinion, the deceased victim was deceased prior to being placed into the swimming pool. While the official cause and manner of death remain pending further studies, the doctor's preliminary findings are the injuries are consistent with asphyxiation by smothering. Dr. Gupta was formally charged with first-degree murder under Florida statute, which is defined as, quote, the unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated from a premeditated design to effect the death of the person killed or any human being. So what about Aria's father, and why were they in Florida in the first place? According to the arrest warrant, Gupta told police she shared custody with her ex-husband, but detectives quickly discovered he had no idea that they had traveled out of state. The warrant reads, the subject shares custody of the deceased victim with her ex-husband, who did not travel with the subject and the deceased victim to Miami, Florida, and was unaware that the deceased victim had left the state of Oklahoma. According to Dr. Talathi, there is an ongoing custody battle within the state of Oklahoma over the victim's care between himself and the subject. Court documents reveal that Dr. Gupta and her ex-husband, Dr. Talathi, were locked in a bitter and prolonged custody fight. In fact, just months before Aria's death, Dr. Talathi had been awarded temporary sole custody by an emergency order. That finding reads, the court finds as follows, that temporary sole custody is awarded to the petitioner. The court finds that an emergency exists and that the respondent will continue to interfere with medical treatment of the minor child. As a part of that ruling, Dr. Gupta was ordered to turn over vaccination records and disclose her location. But there were even deeper concerns about her behavior. Back in April, Talathi filed a motion asking for the court to enforce a psychological evaluation of Dr. Gupta, pointing to what he described as disturbing behavior that raised serious concerns about her ability to safely care for their daughter. In the court filing, he detailed a pattern of emotional instability and conflict, including unreasonable positions on issues concerning the child, unusual mood swings, and erratic behavior raising concern for the safety of the minor child, extreme conflict and defensiveness with almost all persons caring and providing insight for the minor child, to include family members of the child, medical providers, counselors, and experts involved in this litigation. That respondent continues to author false information to the minor child's medical providers regarding claims of domestic violence by the petitioner and a restraining order that has been previously denied by the court. He went on to say, the respondent has put the child's ability to receive medical treatment at risk due to her inappropriate behavior towards the child's providers. That respondent's behavior leads petitioner to believe that respondent has mental health issues that are not being treated. That an evaluation of respondent's mental health is crucial to ensure the safety of the minor child. Regarding Aria's death, Dr. Neha Gupta, through her attorney, maintains her innocence. In an interview with Florida's My Journal Courier, Richard Cooper, one of Dr. Gupta's lawyers, described the murder charges as absurd. In a statement to several media outlets, Cooper said, quote, "We are disappointed that the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office succumbed to pressure and rushed to judgment. As a result, a grieving mother who just lost her daughter is in jail. We look forward to a full investigation that will uncover the truth." In a separate statement to the Miami Herald, Cooper added, quote, "Dr. Gupta fully cooperated with law enforcement and provided multiple consistent statements. Instead of conducting a thorough investigation, including additional autopsies and toxicology analysis, the MDSO chose to pursue a warrant for a grieving mother facing the unimaginable. We look forward to all the facts coming to light." I'm joined by veteran detective Eric Barnes. Detective Barnes, now you saw this body cam. What's your reaction to it?
My first reaction to the body cam was, why wouldn't she come to the door?
Right.
And not only did she not come to the door, she hid in the closet. So that it's a pretty good indicator of guilt.
Yeah, and I agree too, because I'm like, if they're knocking on the door, you're saying it's an accident, you're claiming it's an accident, and it's just horrible overall, thinking that, her child might have allegedly been smothered by her herself. It's just hard to imagine, and you would think if she's going to try to keep up this facade, she would have at least just came to the door, or the body cam or the reaction to her arrest might have just been a little bit different. But overall, do you think, just kind of looking at the case, that this was premeditated?
When I took a look at the case, one of the things that stuck out to me immediately was that, the initial claim that the child drowned while the mother was asleep. And so, you look into, was this a case of neglect or was it just an accident? Did the kid sneak out of the bed and go into the backyard while mom was unaware? But then when the medical examiner said there was no presence of water in her lungs, that's a pretty telltale sign that there's more going on.
Yeah, and just thinking about it, because obviously, these are just allegations at this stage, so we have to say allegedly, but just thinking about the allegations overall of allegedly smothering your own child and then trying to cover it up and then tossing your child away, kind of like trash into a pool in a rented home over in Florida when you're from Oklahoma. It just seems like there's so many factors and layers that kind of lean towards, the right charge, that being first-degree murder. Now, her attorney says that this was an overcharge, that authorities rushed to judgment, and then the judge kind of brought back this whole aspect of that there was no food found in her daughter's body, there was no water, indicating a whole drowning situation. But what are your thoughts overall, just about kind of the layers, and I should say the layers that she did to kind of cover this up allegedly?
My thoughts, as an investigator is, you only can work with what the facts that you have. You try to find the facts, and then once you get the facts, you kind of lay them out and you go with where the facts lead you. And I think in this investigation, the one thing that's overwhelming is that there's a story behind the story. The initial account of what the mother gave doesn't match with the scientific evidence behind it. So, to my knowledge, there was no one else present at the time. So it's just mom and daughter. So someone's not being honest. And I think that, there's a lot of room for, it could have been an accident, but if it's an accident, why do we go through this dramatic storyline?
Right.
So there's a lot of questions left unanswered.
Yeah. And the other layer to this is the whole custody aspect to this case, and the fact that the daughter's father, that he was awarded temporary sole custody of the child, all of that sort. But in terms of just the motive might have been this whole custody battle. What do you think of that? I know that, it's not uncommon, especially for us at Law&Crime, to see these types of things happen. But I think adding that, she was in a highly respected field. She was a doctor, and then this custody battle was going on, and then her daughter ends up dead, allegedly at her hands. What are your thoughts overall about that extra added layer of the whole custody aspect?
I think anytime you bring the family dynamic into these investigations, everything is just so it's very touchy, especially dealing with all the emotions that go on. And typically people will only show you what they want to show you. You never know what goes on behind closed doors. I'm sure families and friends were probably surprised by this. You just never really know what is truly going on, and or what's going through an individual's head at the time that a custody battle was going on.
And kind of going into the overall investigation and kind of seeing how the aspects of the body cam kind of lean into that, talk to me a little bit about when officers first get the call that there might be a homicide investigation going on. They have a suspect that's at their home, and how does that all work in terms of the response when trying to find and apprehend their suspect?
Police officers respond to a large variety of calls, but one of the most difficult calls that you will ever respond to is a call involving a child death. There's death in itself is a part of life, but when a child is dead, something unnatural about that, and it taps into the personal side of officers. Most officers are parents themselves, so to see a young child laying there deceased, it just puts you in the mind frame of what if that was your child. And so it's just something that kind of goes with you, but it also makes you want to do everything right. You don't want to make any mistakes. Obviously, something that if there is foul play that could cause the case to be jeopardized, but also you want to show sympathy as well to the parents that are at the scene. So it's just a really tough situation.
Yeah, because I can imagine that officers initially were, probably empathetic and sympathetic towards her until, more layers were kind of peeled back and more evidence was kind of coming to light. And in terms of just the response and whether or not officers are, have the discretion to use force entry as opposed to just kind of door knocking. How does that all work, especially when you have a situation like this where Dr. Gupta was hiding in her own home and then officers are calling out for her and she doesn't come to the door or anything like that? When is that kind of decision made to just enter the home versus kind of waiting around to see if the suspect will actually come forward?
Well, that decision is made like long before you even get to the house. Typically, in the pre-planning of the warrant, you sit in the boardroom and kind of draw up contingency plans. And if A doesn't happen, we're going with B. B doesn't happen, we go with C. And I think in this situation, officers approached the door. They obviously had on, warrant vests. They had their heavy plate carriers. They had a ram, and they had their weapons out. So at that point in time, they very loudly announced U.S. Marshals. And, I think she was aware that, hey, they're here. They're not here to do an interview. They're here to take me in custody. And I think I heard one of the officers say, I saw her and she walked, in a different direction. So that was a clear indicator that she was not going to be compliant.
And it's hard to believe, too, that it's like she didn't hear what was going on or she, wasn't aware that, officers and authorities were kind of coming into her home, because I can only imagine how loud that could be. So it's kind of hard to, deny in these types of situations. And being the one who's been in those interrogation rooms and doing those police interviews, how much discrepancy is it when it comes to kind of drafting that initial probable cause in terms of you're listening to, the mother, not yet the suspect, kind of talk about what had happened, and then you're peeling back those layers and then you find out, okay, well, the medical examiner's findings were a little bit different than what you were telling me in the police interview. How does that part all work, especially in the initial stages of an investigation like this?
In the initial stages, the one thing that you have to lean on is more of like a hunch, like a feeling in your gut where something just isn't right. Typically you try not to rely on that too much because it could mislead you. Or it could be that you're right, something is off, but it may be, a minor detail. So what you do, you just collect, like I said, you collect facts, you trust your gut instinct, and you continue to ask, questions that will kind of probe for the answers that you're looking for. And then once the medical examiner makes their findings and releases their report, you just kind of sit back and you analyze everything all at once and see if everything adds up.
And in terms of just how kind of, I don't want to say the words unique, but in terms of this case kind of varying across different state lines, the murder happened in Florida, but the family lives in Oklahoma. How does that all work in terms of just like working with detectives from a different state and kind of coordinating the investigation and relying on, each other to get the information correct and right? How does that all work, especially because, again, they live in Oklahoma, but this murder happened in Florida?
It takes a lot of pre-planning and coordination. Obviously, the detectives in Florida, are bound by jurisdictional duties in Florida. So you have to coordinate a lot with authorities in Oklahoma. So typically when you have an arrest that needs to take place, the U.S. Marshals are going to be the first ones to get a call. They have arrest powers across all the U.S. territories. So they will be the lead in carrying that out. And it really takes a lot of trust. Being a detective, you want to be hands-on, and you obviously want to be the one to put cuffs on. You want to see the physical reaction from your suspect, and also be there to hear anything that she may say, any kind of excited utterances that she may make that may help you with your case. But it's kind of hard to do that when, you're several hours away and you just have to trust the detectives that are in the area that are working with you.
And I'm sure there was a rush to solve this case too, given that a young child died as well. And given that, you work in law enforcement and you've done a bunch of different investigations, homicide investigations too, how common have you seen it, or how often have you seen it, where you see a mother accused of murdering their child, but then staging it to make it look like an accident? How often have you seen that in your line of work?
Well, this is actually the first time I've come across a mother being involved with staging a crime scene. I think one of the things that stood out to me in this case was the fact that it was in a separate state. They were down in Florida, and the fact that she was a professional. And so being a doctor, having that background, being involved with this, someone with the professional background, you spend so much time and effort into, becoming a doctor that, for you to throw it all away. And, typically people will jump into protection mode once they are involved in something serious. They try to cover their tracks. And so that's pretty typical. I also think that's also what made it so dangerous when the marshals were knocking at her door. You don't know what kind of thought process she's going through. The mother that's grieving after the loss of her child, whether she's responsible or not, you just never know what state of mind she's in. And now you knock on the door. She obviously knows you're there to do more than talk to her. She goes in a room and, locks herself in a room. So it's just a lot of very touchy situations.
And of course, we'll continue to follow this case and continue to see how this all continues to play out. Detective Eric Barnes, I want to thank you so much for your time and your insight into this case. Before we sign you off, is there anything else you would like to add? What do you think the next steps are going to be in this case?
I believe the defense attorney kind of laid the tracks on which direction they're going to go. He already hinted to the fact of the police overreacting and making a reach with charging her with murder. And he also brought up the fact that she had never had any arrest. And so I think that he's going to say, hey, before we rush to judgment on this case, let's see what facts the police have. So I think he's going to challenge their facts very heavy. And I think that from the law enforcement aspect, a lot of their investigation is going to be science-based.
And we'll see how that all continues to play out too. Again, Detective Eric Barnes, thank you so much for your time and your insight into this case. I really appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
According to the Miami-Dade criminal court records, Dr. Gupta is scheduled to return to court for her arraignment on August 7th. In the meantime, she remains in custody without bond. If convicted of first-degree murder, she faces life in prison or potentially the death penalty. Well, that does it for this episode of Sidebar. Be sure to subscribe to us anywhere you get your podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. I'm Elizabeth Millner, filling in for Jesse Weber, and this has been Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime.